Right.
All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm back with a guest who's been on the show, I think 3 or 4 times now. But it's been a while. I know we were just saying before we went on air here that it's been a minute, and I think that the timing for this works great because by the time people hear this, you will have released your brand new album, which is very exciting.
Yes, a whole new body of work will be out at that point in time, and it's crazy to even think about still.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad to hear it. I'm really looking forward to getting a copy of the record too. But before we get into that, I do have a lot of things I want to ask you about that new record. But
Sure.
if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about who you are and what you do, is a great way to start off the show.
Sounds great. My name is Jeremy Haywood Smith. I perform under the name JayWood. I've been making music and art for, I guess, the last like 7 years with this project. And yeah, recently, like a couple years, man, last time we were talking, we were in the thralls of the pandemic.
I know, yeah.
It's so wild to think. I guess a couple years back now, I got signed to Capture Tracks, and I put up my my redone version of my first EP called Some Days. And on July 15th, I would be putting up my label debut, Slingshot, on the label, and I'm very excited about that. And yeah, by the time this is, like you said, by the time this is heard, it'll be out. So go listen.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I think that you're in an interesting position because, like you said, last time we talked, it was kind of the throes of the pandemic, and sort of, a lot of people everyone's dealt with different things during this time. I mean, thankfully shows are happening again, touring's happening again, all that. But I mean, you sort of went from, local independent artists to suddenly just, getting signed, getting all this attention, and all of this sort of happened during the pandemic. So what was that like, this experience of sort of, you have become more of a known quantity, I think, just within Canadian and elsewhere, music circles, sort of in this time when you couldn't go out and actually play for people.
I mean, that's kind of the best case scenario for an introvert like myself, honestly. I didn't have to do any of the face-to-face at the time, but yeah, it's been a trip watching everything kind of happen over the course of the pandemic. It's been nice to kind of have all these things to work on and keep me busy and semi-sane as things have been happening. And yeah, like, all the hype around the album has been so amazing, and I'm so stoked and grateful for everything. And I'm excited for people to finally hear this thing, because I feel like, because of the time I was able to just put into the album, I feel like I put so much effort and just like intention and detail and everything into it. And yeah, to finally have it be released and to kind of see the result of that and the noise of that has been just like, oh man, I think I'm going the right direction with things, and it feels really good.
Does it kind of feel like now that you've built up to this thing over all this time, because you've had this extra time, because of the pandemic, is there more pressure now that this is coming out and people are going to hear it, and you have to kind of now do, like you said, you're an introvert, you have to do kind of the public facing thing, right? And be out there and sort of promote it and share it.
I mean, things like that, I love doing stuff like this. Like, I love just nerding out over all the shit I do. And it's like, oh, I'm so excited to do that. The face-to-face stuff, like, I thankfully, I've had a taste of that with some touring earlier this year. And I kind of worked my way back up to it. It's still like a weird adjustment going from pandemic to touring again and even seeing people face-to-face. But yeah, I think it's just like something I do because I'm so excited about the album. I'm like, if I wasn't this stoked, it would feel more exhausting than it is. But I'm just so excited about it that it's easy, and I'm happy to do it.
Well, I should hope so too. I mean, it would suck if you had this album coming out and you're just kind of bummed about it, right? At least you have the yeah. So I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you about the record is, I mean, I've been sort of watching all the stuff on social media. You're posting some videos, you've been posting some music, you've been posting some cool photo shoots and things from this record. It seems like there's been a lot that's gone into it, and like you're saying too, that for people who have heard your previous stuff, I mean, how would you describe this album? What should people expect? I mean, because hopefully by the time this comes out, again, people have probably picked it up, or maybe they haven't. Maybe you're new to them, and what would they expect to hear from this album?
True. I think the thing that you'll probably hear is a lot of change and a lot of growth from everything I've put out prior to this. I think the whole album how I described it, felt like it was in just fully out of my comfort zone, vocally, sonically, conceptually. I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. I don't feel comfortable doing anything I'm doing. And because of that, I just kind of went into a lot of weird places. I was just like, oh, I'm into this style of music right now. I'm just gonna go, make a song like that. I'm gonna sing this type of way. I'm going to, produce and like try to make this sound, or like it was just a lot of figuring things out, and a lot of just trusting the process of the song. And I think what people will kind of hear is just like, a lot of new ideas that I've not really ever tried before, as well as just like refined versions of things I've put out in the past. I think that's a really important thing for me, is to just like to go back and to kind of redo the things I've done. I mean, that's why I put out Some Days, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So like I think with the album, I now gotta just like do that again, but with a whole brand new list of songs that I've never existed before. So yeah, I think people will probably just hear growth and just a lot of change on a lot of different sounds. So I'm really stoked to see what people gravitate towards.
Is that idea of kind of redoing things and recording the changes and the improvements and the growth, is that something you kind of see yourself always doing? Like, are we going to hear some of the same songs 10 years down the line and you've decided to kind of reinterpret them again? Or is there an endpoint, I guess, to these songs where you decide they're ready, like they're done?
I think, I don't see myself regurgitating the same idea over and over again. I think the main reason I did that with Some Days to this new album was because it feels like it's in the step of something completely different than everything I put out prior. It's like when I put this out, I think it, like you were saying, it reaches a wider audience. It can maybe do a lot more than anything else I've done prior to this. And I think by having Some Days next to that, it's like, this is where I started. Like it's very modest in the sense of like, it's not that crazy. The production isn't insane, but like it kind of like takes my past with me, essentially, is what the whole point was. And that is largely the theme of the whole album, which is such an amazing combo package, is that like, I wanted to like look at my first body of work and then like have that influence the newest thing I was working on. And I think in doing that, you go to the first thing, then you go to the second thing, and then you work through the whole discography, then you see the whole spectrum of things. And I think it was really cool to just kind of do that as an experiment. But I think whenever I start working on the next thing, I'll be interested. I'll be excited to be somewhere else, and I'll be excited to see what inspires me. Maybe it's not the past next time. Maybe it'll be something completely different.
Yeah. Well, and I like kind of the fluidity of that too, where you have the earlier stuff and it kind of moves into the newer stuff rather than just being a shut door, right? It's not like you're just, this is done, this is compartmentalized over here. It flows.
Totally. Yeah. I think, that's largely why I also haven't changed my Instagram. Like I haven't gone back and deleted a bunch of old pictures. Like I want to show the whole range of everything I do, and I want to show the change and the shifting. Otherwise it just feels like a curated version of myself rather than like a real, growing, changing thing. So, that was important to me for sure.
Well, it's interesting too, because I've been having conversations with people about this, not in relation to music, but in relation to just kind of generationally. It seems like people who are, in a certain, like, I mean, I'm 40 in a couple months. I'm not talking about my age group. I'm talking about younger age group, right? Which, I mean, how old are you right now, if you don't want me asking?
I'm 28 and I will be 29 on August 3rd. So
okay,
big 3-0.
Yeah, coming up to it for sure. I was gonna say though, people in their 20s seem to me, like, as an old guy now, I guess I officially count, to be more kind of not doing that thing of wanting to kind of show an idealized version of themselves. They seem to be more open, people in creative fields especially, to just being, this is who I am, this is, warts and all, kind of like you're saying, having your old music and having that available, and people can go back and see where you came from. And it seems like, there's a generation in between, like people in their 30s maybe and up, are kind of a little more like, oh, I don't know, I want people to see me in this light, versus it seems like the younger crowd is just like, fuck it, this is who I am, this is what I want to show you. And I respect that. I like that. It's nice to see it.
Totally. I think it's more sustainable that way. Also, it's like people are realizing that being like, if you're this curated version of yourself, you have to be on at all points. And I
Yeah.
think, the pandemic has caused people to have to spend a lot of time with themselves and be like, oh, I need to fully be comfortable where I'm at and with the person I am right now. And if we all get the opportunity to do music again, I think it's like, oh, maybe I would hope that people would be like, I put some time into like being comfortable, and I'm cool to just kind of put myself out there. I mean, I know that was kind of what it was for me. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's always been what it's been for me. It's like I've never really, I've made music through my not being comfortable with myself, and I think that's been the process, and that's why I want to just keep showing that I'm like going through different phases and different eras. I'm like,
Yeah.
I sure as hell have not peaked yet, and I don't think I will anytime soon, to be completely honest.
Well, that's probably a good attitude to have too, right? It's not just like, okay, now I'm done. I've reached the high point. Now it's all downhill from here, right?
Yeah, it's like, woof, no,
Yeah.
no, we're just getting started.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that also goes with what you're saying too about, just being influenced by different stuff and taking different ideas and different sounds. I mean, like on one of the songs that you've released so far, you rap on that song.
Yep.
And that's the first time I've heard you rap, and it works. Like it sounds like a JayWood record, but it also has you rapping on it. And
That's so sick.
I wouldn't have thought that before, right? But like it totally fits. And
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like going out of your comfort zone.
100%. I am not a rapper. I spent a lot of time just listening to hip hop and rap in like the pandemic, because I just haven't given myself that time to like enter that genre, because it's massive. Yeah. I think the hip hop genre on itself is just like, away from music, it's just such a wide spectrum of sounds, and it's just like, man, I'm just gonna start at the beginning of it and just go back to the boom bap era.
Yeah.
And writing a rap was a whole new, like, the writing rap is a whole new muscle to use. It's like a lot more words and a lot more, you have to keep it interesting. It was just, very much not what I'm used to doing. And I think committing to that and not being like, I don't want to do that. It's like, I think that was part of the work that went into the album. Just like, don't get embarrassed by the being raw. Like the whole vulnerability of leaving your comfort zone is a thing that sometimes it's skipped over, but it's like, I've never rapped before. I've never written a rap, but I wanted to try it out and see how it worked. And I think I'm glad to hear it still has that JayWood sound to it.
Whatever that is, I can't explain what is the JayWood sound, but it is like it sounds like you, but rapping. Awesome. So I mean, it works for sure.
That's
and
sick.
I guess like going out of your comfort zone too. I mean, that song is for your first time writing a rap. You're talking about very serious subject matter. Like it's a socially conscious song, and so that must have been an extra challenge too, right? You're trying this genre that you haven't experimented with before, and then you're also saying something.
Wow, yeah, that's an interesting perspective of it too. Yeah, I think that song almost felt like it wrote itself, just because it was so. And I mean, like, even the themes of getting political with everything. It's like, that is what the whole genre was built on. It's punk rock for Black people essentially. It's like it's protest in a lot of ways, and I think I just wanted to pay as much homage to that. And that time was just so charged. I felt like I was equally as activated, and I was like, I want to kind of try to tap into that energy, and just try to do something outside of myself.
Do you think that, not necessarily subject matter, but maybe that too, but do you think that rapping is something you want to try again? Like, are you hoping to incorporate more of that into what you do?
I mean, yeah, at this point, the album will be out. I think there is another semi-rap song on there. I've definitely been playing around with how to use vocals and like how to actually sing. I'm like, I definitely want to use rap as a tool in future music. I think it's a lot of fun when you kind of like write your own raps and make your own music to rap on. I think I understand now why so many rappers are like they have such a good time with it. It's a different energy. I don't know how to perform rap yet.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually.
Yeah, that's a whole new muscle. It's like I've not figured out how to perform it, but that in itself is once again being out of my comfort zone.
Yeah,
performing a lot of these new songs is like, man, I've never sang this high in front of people. I've never just held the mic for a whole song. I've never, I've never played these kind of like licks before. So it's like relearning everything in real time, and I think that's really cool now that things are happening again in such like amounts.
Yeah. Well, and do you think that I kind of get the feeling that audiences are willing to kind of give people the time to experiment with stuff like that because we've all come out of this thing, right? It's not just the artists who have come out of this pandemic; it's the audience too. I mean, everyone is just happy to see some
Totally.
kind of music, and the idea that maybe an artist that you've already been familiar with is going to try something new. It's exciting. Whereas before, maybe you've been like, oh, come on, I want to just just play the
Yeah.
record. Let's play the record. But
Good old fashioned, old reliable type
yeah,
thing.
that's right. Yeah, and now it's just
Yeah.
like, well, hey, it's a show. We haven't had one of these. Like, do something. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah,
100%. That's exactly it. I think I'm just treating the whole thing like it's like a revamp version of what it was prior. Like it's completely different now. Landscape's different,
yeah.
new songs, everything's different. So it's like I think like we have to change too. So yeah.
What are the plans? Once this is what is out there? What are you touring? What are you going to be doing to promote the record?
I think yeah, they'll I don't know if I can even say yet.
Okay.
Well, maybe like I think I'll be announcing it soon enough. Like I'll be probably touring in the fall a bit. And then waiting for kind of what the next year brings. It's like kind of planning around like the
Yeah.
springtime thing. I'm like, it's tricky to say because you keep hearing the whispers and murmurs that COVID's returning. It's like, oh God, here we go again. So it's like I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but at the same time, I'm excited to get back on the road and like play some of these new songs. But I'm also wanting to do more visual stuff around the album as well. Like I want to do more shorts and like skits and just really kind of boost up the visual aspect of this whole project. And like that's like something I've been very vocal about to everyone around me. Like I want to direct more, I want to write more, I want to just like have more of a visual presence with everything. And once the album is out, I think I can kind of start to tell a different story when people have heard the songs, and it's just like, oh, okay, this is now becoming a bigger thing.
Yeah.
And that we've lived with it for a little longer.
Well, that's cool because I mean, like I was saying, seeing like some of the photo shoots and things you've been posting online, and the album cover and things like that too, right? And I mean, the videos you've put out so far, there definitely is that is obviously a strong element of it. Have you always? Is that always been something you've wanted to do? Is to kind of make that a significant part of your project?
I think so. I think it's been really quiet at first. Like like when I was working on a lot of my older music, I always had an idea of like what I wanted it to look like. I'm like, oh, I want the video to be like this, or I want the pictures to be like this because this. And yeah, I've always had that in mind, but I think I never really got the chance to really kind of do it. And I think now just with resource and just more time and more of a realized idea of what I want the project to be, I think it's become louder and louder that, oh, I should probably be just as intentional with my visual representation as I am with my sonic representation. So it's like they all have to work in tandem. And I think, it's been really cool to see a lot of artists put that emphasis on both sides of their of their art. And it's just like, yeah, I really want to kind of be in that same avenue of like, when I put out an album, it's not just an album, it's a whole ass experience. It's like you get the photos, the videos, the songs, this, you get all these little things that tell a bigger story, and like you're like living in a whole world for a little bit. And yeah, I think that really makes for me an album a fuller, funner experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, as a listener to just any music, when that happens, it's always kind of enhances for sure what you're listening to. And I'm glad you're doing that. But maybe that brings up another question of, we're in this horrible world where people don't have an attention span, and the amount of kind of focus people put on a given record. I mean, it could be a 30-second blip of a song, and then they shuffle on to the next thing. Like,
Yeah.
is it hard to kind of have those ideas where you want to present it as a whole ass experience, like you said, and knowing that not every listener is going to necessarily give it that time or give it that kind of depth of thought.
Totally. I think it's one of those things where it's like it's a passion project at that point. It's like it's not for anybody else. It's there
Yeah.
if you want to do, if you want to kind of dive in, but it's more for me than it is for anybody else. And I think as people, like as I progress as an artist and get better at this whole thing, as I'm figuring things out, it's just like people will kind of realize it's like, oh, it's the whole thing. It's not just this anymore. It's like we do this so we can also get this, and so we can also
Yeah.
get this. like it's the whole thing. It might not be all at once, and I think I trust myself enough to be like, it's for me before it's for anybody else. And I think that that's kind of why and how I've made a lot of like decisions and like what I do in music and everything. It's like, don't think about the noise, don't think about the hype. It's not real until it's in front of you. So just, yeah, that's where the intention comes in.
Okay. That kind of goes back to something we were talking about earlier too, about that you're happy with this thing and it's ready to come out and you've kind of got it how you want it. And
Yeah.
obviously if you're going to be stoked on it, it's going to be better, I think, just in general, because people are going to pick up on that too, right? I mean, people at live shows or even just seeing your stuff online, they're going to be, you'll feel that it's actually, you're passionate about it rather than just fulfilling a contractual obligation or whatever.
Exactly, that's exactly, it's like I was fully gonna put out this album with or without being signed, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that I'm able to do it and more people are able to hear it, and like that's something I'm incredibly grateful for. It's like the idea that the label like has signed me based on this album more than anything. So it's like, okay, that for me was like you're heading in the right direction. So
Yeah. Yeah. Has that I mean, I guess like this is gonna be out on vinyl. You're gonna have a lot, it's a lot much like bigger, just all around release, because the last one was just digital only, right?
Yeah, this one's a bigger push. Like, oh man, I had the trippiest experience of just like, I got a message from my old I guess my old boss at the old music store I used to work at HMV, and she sent a picture of my CD coming in the new releases. And I'm
Nice.
like, holy, and that I don't know, it hits so hard for some reason. It's like, I remember working new release day. I remember putting out new CDs, and to see my CD kind of pop up in my old music store, it's just like, oh shit, that's unreal on so many levels. And I think that for me was like, oh, this is very different than
Yeah.
anything I've done, for sure.
Well, that's kind of a cool indicator of it too, because I'm sure there's a lot of larger scale, bigger, higher profile things happening, but just to focus on that one and then kind of make that connection is cool. Yeah.
It was huge. I think it meant more than a lot. It just meant so much when I saw that. I was like, wow, it still fully hasn't hit, but like it's just like it's just a crazy feeling more than anything.
Yeah. So where can people find this record? I mean, I assume at this point it's on all the streaming services that everyone uses, but where else can they get pick up a copy if
Yeah,
they want physicals or things like that?
I mean, it'll be at like Sunrise. I was working at HMV before it became Sunrise.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, but it'll be there, and it's available on Bandcamp, SoundCloud. You can digitally, I mean, you can order it physically on Bandcamp, on the Capture Tracks website, and yeah, it sounds like it'll be in some record stores too, which is super cool.
It is cool. It's cool. It's cool. Like, first of all, the record stores didn't die because of the pandemic, and then
Yeah,
yeah, secondly, that you can have your stuff in there where you used to work is it's
that's
extra cool.
crazy.
Yeah.
Very, very crazy.
So the good thing about this being a podcast is someone could hear it, the day it comes out, or they could hear it a year later. What's the
True.
best way to find out what you're up to as far as shows, as far as new music, things like that?
I think Instagram is probably the way to go. Instagram, it's probably the one social media I'm reliably on the most, and actually posting. So Instagram, which is JayWood, JAY, three Y's, WOOD, and I'm also on Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff. But like, it's very much like But I'm on
Instagram,
there.
Instagram is the one though. Instagram's the yeah.
Instagram's the one. It's the thing that will bring you to all the other things. So
Right on, right on. Well, I'm really happy that this record's out. I mean, and it sounds like something you've been building towards for a long time, and it's
definitely.
exciting to see it. It's exciting to see this whole thing coming to fruition for you too, and getting signed and getting this attention, because you've been plugging away for a while, and it's you've been making good music. So it's always cool to see someone from the local community who is has kind of been through it and has put in the work and finally getting rewarded for it.
I appreciate that, Sam. Thank you so much. It's like I mean, it's always just wild. It's like, for me, it's not felt like I've been grinding, but maybe on the outside it seems that way. It's like I've been doing this thing. It goes back to that whole, I'm just doing it for me. It's like, I don't know
Yeah.
what else I'd be doing if I wasn't doing this. And I'm just really grateful that it's kind of panning out this way. And it's like, it's having support like Witchpolice Radio, like having Manitoba music and having my community to kind of lean on to kind of pick me up when I'm like, oh fuck, this shit's not working out, has, you know, been really helpful and definitely helped me get to this point. So I'm grateful equally to the community for its support, because I would
Awesome.
not be here without it. So, and that's why I'll constantly still be at shows, and I'll be booking shows, and I'll be trying to do stuff locally as much as possible, because I love my city and I'm not going to forget it, despite no matter what happens.
That's awesome. As someone who obsesses over Winnipeg music, it's always good to hear that.
I ain't going anywhere.
Right on.